The wrench slipped from my grease-stained fingers as I heard my wife giggling like a damn teenager through our bedroom window. At midnight, while I was fixing our busted pickup truck in the driveway like some kind of grease monkey saint. "I can't wait to see you again, Dr. Marsh," Holly whispered into her phone, her voice dripping with honey she'd never used on me in 15 years of marriage. "Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories." Dr. Marsh. If she ever flossed for me with that kind of enthusiasm, I'd probably fade of shock. I'm Cole Rivers, 45 years old, construction manager for Henderson Building Company, and apparently the last person in Castle Rock to know my wife was screwing her dentist. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who complained about my morning breath was getting intimate with a guy who spent his days elbow deep in other people's mouths. Our town was one of those faded Midwestern places where the mall was fading. The factories had moved to Mexico, and everyone knew everyone else's business. Except, apparently, mine. I crept closer to the window, my work boots crunching on the gravel driveway. Holly was pacing around our bedroom in that ridiculous silk nightgown she'd bought last month. The one she claimed was for herself, when I'd questioned the $100 price tag. "Ethan, you're so bad," she giggled again. "No, Cole's outside working on that piece of junk truck. He'll be out there for hours." Piece of junk truck. The same truck that hauled her yoga mats to her precious studio every morning. The same truck she'd begged me to fix when it wouldn't start last week. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Not because I'm some kind of tech genius. Hell, I still struggle with the camera app. But because my divorce lawyer buddy Jake had drilled it into my head years ago when his own wife went sideways. "Document everything, Cole. Everything." "I miss the way you touch me," Holly continued, her voice getting breathier. "Cole just doesn't understand a woman's needs anymore. He's always covered in sawdust and cement. Sawdust and cement that paid for her yoga instructor certification. Sawdust and cement that bought that silk nightgown. Sawdust and cement that kept the lights on while she played spiritual guru to bored housewives 3 days a week." I backed away from the window, my mind racing faster than my old Chevy on a downhill grade. How long had this been going on? How many late-night classes and yoga retreats were actually rendezvous with Dr. Perfect Teeth? The phone call ended, and I heard Holly moving around upstairs. I dove back under the hood of the truck, grabbing the wrench and making enough noise to sound busy. A few minutes later, she appeared in the doorway wearing a robe. "Still working on that old thing?" she asked, her voice now cold and distant, the tone I'd grown accustomed to over the past 6 months. "Yeah, well, someone's got to keep our piece of junk transportation running," I replied, not looking up from the engine. "Maybe if you got a real job instead of playing with hammers all day, we could afford a decent car." There it was, the contempt that had been building like pressure in a boiler. I'd been attributing it to midlife crisis, stress from her struggling yoga business, or just the natural wear and tear of a long marriage. Turns out it was good old-fashioned cheating. "Funny thing," I said, finally looking up at her. "I was thinking the same thing about your yoga business. Maybe if you spent more time actually teaching yoga instead of playing around, it might turn a profit." Her face flushed red, and for a split second, I saw panic in her eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, honey. Just thinking out loud." She turned and stormed back into the house, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I waited until I saw the bedroom light go out before pulling out my phone to check the recording. Clear as a bell, Holly Rivers confessing to an affair with Dr. Ethan Marsh, complete with commentary about her husband's inadequacies. I knew Ethan Marsh. Everyone in Castle Rock knew Dr. Marsh. He was the kind of guy who drove a Tesla to environmental awareness meetings and posted photos of his morning smoothies on social media. His dental practice was in one of those modern glass buildings downtown, all clean lines and pretentious art. He was married to Dana Marsh, a sharp-tongued accountant who'd done my taxes a few times and always seemed too smart for her own good. Poor Dana. She probably had no idea her husband was conducting oral examinations on my wife. I spent the next hour sitting in my truck, staring at our house and planning my next move. The old Cole would have stormed inside, confronted Holly, and demanded an explanation. The old Cole would have driven straight to Ethan's house and punched him in his perfectly capped teeth. But the old Cole was apparently a sucker who'd been working double shifts to support his wife's dreams while she was living out her fantasies with Dr. Wonderful. The new Cole was going to be smarter, meaner, and a hell of a lot more creative. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Dana Marsh's number. It was late, but this couldn't wait. The phone rang 3 times before a groggy voice answered. "Dana, it's Cole Rivers. I'm sorry to call so late, but we need to talk. It's about our spouses." There was a long pause, then a sharp intake of breath. "I'll put on some coffee," she said. "How fast can you get here?" Dana Marsh lived in one of those perfectly manicured neighborhoods where the grass was always green and the mailboxes all matched. Her house was a study in accountant precision, every angle clean, every surface organized, every detail calculated for maximum efficiency. She answered the door in sweats and a Northwestern University t-shirt, her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Without makeup, she looked younger than her 37 years, but her eyes were sharp and alert despite the late hour. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. "Coffee's brewing." Her living room was immaculate in that way that suggested either no children or a serious cleaning obsession. Medical journals were stacked neatly on the coffee table next to what looked like tax preparation software and a half-empty bottle of wine. "So," she said, settling into a chair across from me with a steaming mug, "what exactly do you know about our spouses?" I pulled out my phone and played the recording. Dana's expression didn't change much, but I noticed her grip tighten on the coffee mug. When it finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "How long have you suspected?" she asked finally. Tonight was the first real confirmation, but looking back, probably 6 months. "You?" "Longer." She took a sip of coffee and stared out the window. "Ethan's been working late a lot. New patients, he said. Special cases that required evening appointments. I'm an accountant, Cole. I know what evening appointments look like on a dental practice's books, and they don't look like what Ethan's been claiming." "Why didn't you say anything?" "To who? You?" "Hey, I think your wife is sleeping with my husband, but I have no proof. Besides, I wasn't entirely sure until about 3 weeks ago." "What happened 3 weeks ago?" Dana got up and walked to a desk in the corner of the room. She pulled out a manila folder and handed it to me. Inside were credit card statements, highlighted in yellow. Hotel charges. Always on the same days, Holly had her private yoga sessions, according to Ethan. The Riverside Inn, specifically. Room 237, apparently their favorite. I studied the statements. The Riverside Inn was a cheap motel on the edge of town, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. Not exactly the romantic getaway you'd expect from a successful dentist and a yoga instructor. "Classy," I muttered. "That's what I thought. If you're going to destroy 2 marriages, at least spring for decent thread count." I looked up at Dana, surprised by the dry humor in her voice. She was handling this a lot better than I expected. "You seem pretty calm about this," I said. "I've had time to process. And honestly, I'm more angry than hurt. Ethan and I haven't been happy for years. We've been going through the motions, staying together out of habit more than love. But I'll be damned if I'm going to let him humiliate me publicly while he figures out his midlife crisis." "So, what do you want to do about it?" Dana smiled, and for the first time since I'd arrived, I saw real emotion in her eyes. It wasn't sadness or betrayal. It was something much more dangerous. "I want to destroy them," she said simply. "Socially, financially, professionally. I want them to regret ever thinking they were smarter than us." That's a pretty serious commitment. "Cole, my husband is cheating on me with your wife in a cheap motel while telling his patients he's taking continuing education courses." Your wife is using your money to fund her affair while complaining about your job to her lover. They think we're idiots. I don't know about you, but I have a real problem with being underestimated. I leaned back in my chair, studying this woman I'd only known as the quiet accountant who did my taxes. There was steel underneath that calm exterior, the kind of calculated fury that could move mountains or destroy lives. What did you have in mind? I asked. Well, for starters, I think they should know that we know, but not directly. I think they should start feeling paranoid, wondering if they've been caught. Make them sweat a little before we lower the boom. And then we hit them where it hurts most. Holly's precious yoga studio, Ethan's dental practice, their reputations, their social standing, everything they think makes them better than us. I thought about Holly's dismissive comments about my job, her constant complaints about our modest house and aging truck. I thought about Ethan's smug smile at community events, the way he talked down to anyone who didn't have a college degree. I'm in, I said, but I want to do this smart. No criminal charges, nothing that comes back to bite us legally. Agreed. I'm not going to prison because my husband can't keep his hands to himself. Dana stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the perfectly ordered street. I'm thinking we start small. A little psychological pressure. Make them wonder if they're being watched. Like what? Well, for instance, Ethan always parks his Tesla in the same spot at the office. What if tomorrow morning he found a note under his windshield wiper? Nothing threatening, just something that lets him know someone's paying attention. What kind of note? How about nice car, too bad about the scratches? And then we put a few small scratches on it. I raised an eyebrow. That's vandalism. That's a minor property damage misdemeanor with a $50 fine if we get caught, which we won't, and it's nothing compared to what they're doing to our marriages. She had a point. I'd spent 15 years playing by the rules, being the good husband, the reliable provider, the guy who fixed things and didn't complain. Where had it gotten me? A cheating wife and a recording of her telling another man how inadequate I was. What about Holly? I asked. What's the thing she cares about most? Her yoga studio. It's her whole identity. Then that's where we hit her. What if some of her students started hearing rumors about her professionalism? Nothing slanderous, just questions about whether she's really focused on her teaching or if she's distracted by other things. How do we do that? Leave that to me. I know people. Accountants hear everything in a small town, and we have long memories. I finished my coffee and stood up. When do we start? Tomorrow. But Cole, once we do this, there's no going back. Are you sure you want to go down this road? I thought about Holly's laughter on the phone, her casual dismissal of our marriage, her complete lack of respect for everything I'd worked for. I thought about Ethan's smug face and his expensive car and his assumption that he could take whatever he wanted without consequences. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Dana walked me to the door. One more thing. We need to be smart about this. No contact between us that they can trace, no phone calls, no texts. If we need to communicate, we do it in person. How do we arrange meetings? The Rusty Nail, every Tuesday night at 8. It's loud, it's crowded, and neither of them would be seen there. The Rusty Nail was the kind of dive bar where construction workers and factory guys went to drink beer and complain about their bosses. It was exactly the kind of place Holly would describe as beneath us, and Ethan would never set foot in. Perfect, I said. See you Tuesday. As I drove home through the quiet streets of Castle Rock, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Purpose. For the first time in years, I wasn't just reacting to life. I was taking control. Holly was asleep when I got home, curled up on her side of the bed with her phone charging on the nightstand. I stood in the doorway for a moment, looking at the woman I'd married, the mother of my daughter, the person I'd built my adult life around. Tomorrow, I was going to start tearing that life apart, and I was going to enjoy every minute of it. I woke up before dawn, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the sense of anticipation thrumming through my veins like caffeine. Holly was still asleep, her phone dark and silent on the nightstand. I wondered if she'd been texting Dr. Wonderful after I'd gone to bed. I showered, dressed, and headed out to my truck without waking her. First stop, the hardware store. Second stop, downtown, where Dr. Ethan Marsh parked his pristine white Tesla every morning at exactly 7:30. The hardware store opened at 6. I bought a small screwdriver, the kind used for precision work, and a package of those little sticky notes that looked official. Nothing suspicious about a construction manager buying tools and office supplies. Ethan's dental practice was in the Riverside Professional Complex, a glass and steel monument to small-town prosperity. His Tesla was already there when I arrived at 7:45, parked in the spot marked Dr. Marsh in elegant script. I'd driven past this building hundreds of times over the years, never thinking much about the people inside. Now I was studying it like a general planning an assault. Security cameras on the main entrance, but not in the parking lot. Good visibility from the street, but early morning traffic was light. I had maybe a 5-minute window before other tenants started arriving. I parked my truck 2 blocks away and walked back, carrying a clipboard and wearing my Henderson Building Company shirt. In a town like Castle Rock, nobody questioned a contractor checking on a job site. The Tesla was even more obnoxious up close. Vanity plates that read "Der Smile," and one of those pretentious environmental stickers on the back window. I pulled out the screwdriver and made 3 small scratches along the driver's side door, nothing deep enough to require expensive bodywork, but visible enough to be noticed. Then I placed the note under the windshield wiper. Nice car. Too bad about the scratches. A friend. I was back in my truck and driving away within 4 minutes. Phase 1 complete. My phone rang as I pulled into the Henderson Building Company parking lot. Jake Morrison, my crew chief, and the closest thing I had to a best friend. "Cole, you sound different this morning," he said after I answered, almost cheerful. "It's disturbing. Just looking forward to a productive day." "Right. What's really going on?" Jake had known me for 12 years. He'd been the best man at my wedding, had helped me move into my house, and had listened to me complain about Holly's growing distance over the past few months. If anyone could read my mood, it was him. Let's just say I'm taking a more active approach to problem solving. That's either very good news or very bad news. Want to talk about it over lunch? Rain check. I've got some personal business to handle. Cole, whatever you're planning, just remember that Holly's still Emma's mom. Emma. My 15-year-old daughter, currently staying with my sister in Chicago for the summer. The one person in this whole mess who was completely innocent. Jake was right to bring her up. Whatever I did, I had to consider how it would affect her. "I'm not going to do anything that hurts Emma," I said, "but I'm done being a doormat." "Fair enough. Just be smart about it." I spent the morning running a job site inspection, but my mind kept drifting to Ethan's reaction when he found his car. Would he call the police? Would he suspect his wife? Would he immediately think of Holly's husband? At noon, I drove past the dental office. The Tesla was gone. Either Ethan had taken it to get the scratches buffed out, or he was paranoid enough to move it to a different location. Either way, mission accomplished. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "The Eagle has landed. Nest is stirred up. Your Tuesday friend, Dana." She was letting me know that Ethan had found the note and was rattled. I deleted the text immediately. That evening, I got home to find Holly in the kitchen, aggressively chopping vegetables for dinner. She looked up when I walked in, her expression tighter than usual. "How was your day?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Same as always. Yours?" "Fine. Just fine." She went back to chopping with unnecessary force. "Have you heard anything about vandalism in town lately?" "Vandalism? What kind of vandalism?" Someone scratched Ethan's car today, at his office, left a threatening note. I opened the refrigerator and grabbed a beer, taking my time to compose my expression before turning around. That's terrible. Did he call the police? He filed a report, but they said it was probably just random mischief. Still, it's concerning. This used to be such a safe town. Yeah, it's a real shame when people don't respect other people's property. Holly looked at me sharply, as if trying to detect some hidden meaning in my words. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just agreeing with you that vandalism is wrong. She went back to her vegetables, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. The seed of paranoia had been planted. Holly, can I ask you something? What? How well do you know Dr. Marsh? Her knife slipped, barely missing her finger. What? Why would you ask that? Just curious. You've been going to him for dental work a lot lately. Figured you might have gotten to know him. He's a professional. We don't really chat. Right, professional. I took a long drink of my beer. Still, 6 appointments in 2 months seems like a lot. Maybe you should get a second opinion. 6 appointments? What are you talking about? The bank statements, Holly. I balance our checkbook. Dr. Marsh's office has been getting a lot of our money lately. She turned to face me fully, her face flushed. I had some complicated dental work. Root canal, crown, follow-up appointments. It's not unusual. Of course not. I just want to make sure you're getting good value for our money. Maybe I should give him a call. Ask about payment plans. No! The word came out sharper than she intended. I mean, that's not necessary. I can handle my own dental care. I'm sure you can. Just trying to be supportive. The rest of dinner passed in uncomfortable silence. Holly kept glancing at me as if trying to figure out what I was thinking. Good. Let her wonder. After she went to bed, I sat in my truck in the driveway and called Dana from a payphone outside the Rusty Nail. Old-fashioned but untraceable. How did it go on your end? I asked when she answered. Better than expected. Ethan came home paranoid and angry. Spent an hour on the phone with his insurance company and the police. He's convinced someone's targeting him specifically. Any idea why? He thinks it might be a disgruntled patient. Apparently, he had to give someone bad news about a root canal last week, and the guy wasn't happy about the cost. Perfect cover story. That's what I thought. How did Holly react? She's suspicious, but not sure what to be suspicious about. Asked me about vandalism in town. Mentioned Ethan's car specifically. Interesting that she knew about it so quickly. That's what I thought. They must have talked today. Which means they're both rattled. Good. Are you ready for phase 2? What's phase 2? We turn up the heat. Make them think they're being watched. I'll handle Ethan, you handle Holly. How? Leave that to me. Just be ready to move on Thursday. And Cole? Yeah? Make sure you have an alibi for everything we do. I don't want either of us getting caught because we got careless. I hung up and drove home through the quiet streets, feeling more alive than I had in months. Holly and Ethan thought they were so clever, sneaking around behind our backs, laughing at the stupid spouses who didn't have a clue. They were about to learn that stupid and naive weren't the same thing, and that sometimes the quiet guy in the corner was the most dangerous person in the room. Thursday morning, I followed my usual routine with one small addition. Instead of going straight to the job site, I made a detour past Holly's yoga studio. The Serenity Now Wellness Center was housed in a converted warehouse downtown, all exposed brick and industrial chic. Holly had spent months designing the space, choosing the perfect lighting and sound system, creating what she called a sanctuary for mind, body, and spirit. It was her pride and joy, the thing that made her feel important and successful, which made it the perfect target. I parked across the street and watched as Holly's students arrived for the 9 o'clock class. Mostly middle-aged women with expensive yoga pants and oversized coffee cups. The kind of people who cared deeply about appearances and social standing. My phone rang. Jake again. Cole, We've got a problem at the Morrison site. The electrical inspector is here early and the wiring isn't ready. I'll be right there. I drove to the construction site, where I spent the morning dealing with bureaucratic nonsense and incompetent subcontractors. Normal workday frustrations, but today they felt like minor annoyances rather than major stresses. Funny how having a secret mission could put everything else in perspective. At lunch, I drove back past the yoga studio. Holly's car was gone, probably running errands between classes. Perfect timing. I walked into the studio wearing my cleanest work shirt and carrying a clipboard. The receptionist, a young woman with purple hair and multiple piercings, looked up from her computer. "Can I help you?" "Building inspection," I said, showing her my Henderson Building Company ID. "We've had some complaints about structural issues in these converted warehouses. Need to check the load-bearing walls." "Oh, Holly didn't mention any inspection." "Routine check. Won't take long." The girl looked uncertain, but didn't want to argue with someone in an official-looking uniform. "Okay, I guess. The next class doesn't start until 2. I spent 15 minutes walking around the studio with my clipboard, taking notes and measurements. Legitimate building inspection stuff. I wasn't lying about that part. These old warehouses did have structural issues sometimes. While I was there, I struck up a conversation with the receptionist. Her name was Amber, and she was a college student working part-time while studying massage therapy. She was also a gossip. "Holly's been really stressed lately," Amber confided while I examined a support beam. "More than usual, I mean. She's always been kind of high-strung, but the past few weeks she's been really distracted." "Oh? How so?" "Missing appointments, showing up late, leaving early. Yesterday she got 3 phone calls during the intermediate class and stepped out to answer all of them. The students weren't happy. That's not very professional. Right? And she's been really secretive about her schedule. Usually she tells me everything, but lately she's been booking these private sessions without putting them on the calendar. Cash only, no receipts." Interesting. Holly was keeping her affair appointments off the books, probably to avoid leaving a paper trail. But she was also alienating her legitimate students in the process. "Well," I said, making a final note on my clipboard, "everything looks structurally sound. Thanks for your cooperation." "No problem. Should I tell Holly you were here?" "That's not necessary. This was just a routine check." I left the studio and drove to the Rusty Nail, where I ordered a sandwich and called Dana from the payphone in the back. "Phase 2 is in motion," I said when she answered. "How are things on your end?" "Ethan's a nervous wreck. He moved his car to a different parking spot, and he's been checking over his shoulder all day. His dental assistant called me this morning to ask if everything was okay at home because he's been so distracted." "Good. Holly's starting to crack too. Her business is suffering because she's so focused on covering her tracks." "Perfect. Are you ready for the next step?" "What's the next step?" "We make them think their secret isn't so secret anymore. I'm going to plant some rumors in the right ears, let the gossip mill do the work for us." "What kind of rumors?" "Nothing specific. Just questions about whether Holly's really focused on her business, whether Ethan's evening appointments are legitimate. Let people draw their own conclusions." "That could backfire. What if someone asks us directly? Then we act surprised and concerned, like we had no idea anything was wrong. We're the innocent spouses, remember? We're just as shocked as everyone else." After lunch, I drove back to the job site and tried to focus on work. But my mind kept drifting to Holly and Ethan, wondering how they were handling the pressure. Were they second-guessing their affair? Were they starting to realize that their perfect little secret might not be so perfect? That evening, I got my answer. I came home to find Holly pacing around the living room with her phone pressed to her ear. She was speaking in hushed tones, but I caught fragments of the conversation. "Can't keep doing this. Too risky. People are starting to notice." She saw me and quickly ended the call. "Hi, honey. How was your day?" "Fine. Who was that?" "Just a student. She's having some personal problems and needed someone to talk to. That's nice of you. What kind of problems? Oh, relationship stuff, marriage troubles. I hope you were able to help her. I tried. Sometimes there's only so much you can do. Some situations are just complicated. I nodded sympathetically. Marriage is hard work. Takes commitment from both people to make it work. Holly's face went pale. What do you mean by that? Just that relationships require trust and communication. When people start keeping secrets from each other, that's when things fall apart. Secrets? What kind of secrets? Any kind. Financial secrets, emotional secrets, physical secrets. Once you start hiding things from your spouse, you're on a slippery slope. Holly stared at me for a long moment, clearly trying to figure out if I was speaking generally or specifically. I kept my expression neutral and innocent. You're right, she said finally. Honesty is important in a marriage. Absolutely. That's why I've always tried to be completely open with you about everything. My work, my feelings, my whereabouts. I hope you feel the same way. Of course I do. Good, because I'd hate to think there was anything you felt you couldn't tell me. That night, Holly tossed and turned for hours. I lay still, pretending to sleep, while she checked her phone repeatedly and sighed dramatically. Around 2 a.m, she got up and went to the bathroom. I heard her making a whispered phone call. We need to be more careful. I think he suspects something. No, I don't know how much he knows, but he's been asking weird questions. When she came back to bed, I was ready with my next move. Everything okay? I asked sleepily. Fine, just couldn't sleep. You've been restless lately. Maybe you should see a doctor. I'm fine, Cole. Just work stress. The yoga business is that demanding? You have no idea. I rolled over and put my arm around her, pulling her close. She tensed up immediately. Maybe we should take a vacation, I suggested. Get away from work. Spend some time together. Remember why we fell in love in the first place. A vacation? Yeah, just the two of us. No distractions, no work, no outside influences. What do you think? Holly was quiet for so long I thought she'd fallen asleep. Then she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. I don't think that's a good idea right now. Why not? I have commitments. The studio needs me. The studio will survive without you for a week. You don't understand, Cole. I have responsibilities. People are counting on me. What people? Another long pause. My students. My clients. I'm sure they'd understand. Everyone needs a break sometimes. Not now, maybe later. I let it drop, but the message was clear. Holly couldn't take a vacation because it would interfere with her affair. She was choosing Ethan over her marriage, and she didn't even have the courage to admit it. Fine. If she wanted to play games, I'd show her what a real game looked like. Tuesday night at the Rusty Nail, Dana and I sat in a corner booth nursing beers and planning our next move. The bar was crowded and loud, perfect cover for a clandestine meeting. Dana looked different outside of her pristine house, more relaxed, more dangerous. They're both cracking, she said, leaning across the table so I could hear her over the music. Ethan's been paranoid all week, checking his car for scratches, looking over his shoulder, and according to my sources, Holly's been asking around about whether anyone's been talking about her. Your sources? I do taxes for half the women in this town, Cole. They tell me everything. And I may have mentioned to a few of them that I was concerned about Holly's professionalism lately. What kind of concerns? Nothing specific, just that she seemed distracted, unfocused, maybe not giving her students the attention they deserve. I suggested they might want to consider other options for their wellness needs. How did they react? About what you'd expect. These women pay good money for their yoga classes. If they think they're not getting value for their dollar, they'll take their business elsewhere. I took a sip of my beer, impressed by Dana's strategic thinking. She wasn't just angry, She was calculating. How many students has Holly lost? 3 this week that I know of, probably more. That's got to hurt financially. It's just the beginning. I've got bigger plans. Such as? Dana pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot of Holly's yoga studio website. Look at the testimonials page. I scrolled through the glowing reviews from satisfied customers. What am I looking for? Notice anything about the recent reviews? I looked more carefully. The most recent testimonials were all from months ago. No new reviews lately. Exactly. And if you check the online review sites, you'll see some interesting new comments. She showed me several negative reviews that had appeared over the past few days. Nothing slanderous, just disappointed customers complaining about Holly's lack of focus and professionalism. You wrote these? I didn't write anything false. I just encouraged some people to share their honest experiences. Damn, Dana, you're ruthless. I'm just getting started. What about you? Ready to turn up the heat on your end? I thought about Holly's increasingly erratic behavior, her paranoid phone calls, her refusal to take a vacation. She was already on edge. Maybe it was time to push her over. What did you have in mind? Direct confrontation, not with accusations but with questions. Make them think we know more than we actually do. That's risky. What if they confess? Then we have them on record. What if they deny everything? Then we know they're committed to lying, and we escalate accordingly. I finished my beer and considered the options. Part of me wanted to drag this out, make them suffer slowly. But another part was tired of the games and ready for a resolution. When do we do it? This weekend. There's a community barbecue at Riverside Park on Saturday. Everyone will be there, including Holly and Ethan. Public setting, lots of witnesses, no way for them to make a scene without looking guilty. What's the plan? We approach them separately but simultaneously. I'll take Ethan, you take Holly. Ask innocent questions about their friendship, their professional relationship. See how they react. And then? Then we see what happens. If they're smart, they'll end the affair and try to salvage their marriages. If they're stupid, they'll double down and give us more ammunition. Saturday afternoon, Riverside Park was packed with families enjoying the annual community barbecue. Local businesses had set up booths, kids were running around with balloons, and the smell of grilled burgers filled the air. It was the kind of wholesome small-town event that Holly usually loved, a chance to see and be seen, to network with potential yoga clients. I spotted her near the beverage stand, talking to a group of women from her yoga class. She was wearing a sundress and sandals, looking like the perfect suburban wife. If you didn't know better, you'd never guess she was conducting an affair. Ethan was across the park at the dental health booth, handing out free toothbrushes and flossing demonstrations. He looked relaxed and confident, the picture of professional success. But I noticed he kept scanning the crowd as if looking for threats. Dana appeared at my elbow, carrying a plate of potato salad. Ready? Let's do this. We split up. I walked over to Holly's group, wearing my friendliest smile. Hey ladies, I said, joining the conversation. Beautiful day for a barbecue. The women greeted me warmly. I'd known most of them for years, neighbors, fellow parents, the fabric of small-town life. Holly looked surprised, but pleased to see me making an effort to socialize. Cole was just telling us about the new construction project downtown, one of the women said. Actually, I was hoping to ask Holly about something, I said. Honey, I've been thinking about getting some dental work done, and I know you've been seeing Dr. Marsh a lot lately. Would you recommend him? Holly's smile faltered slightly. Oh, yes, he's very professional. Great. I was thinking about calling his office, maybe mentioning that you referred me. You two must know each other pretty well by now, with all those appointments. We don't really, it's just a doctor-patient relationship. Of course. Still, maybe you could put in a good word for me? Let him know I'm a serious patient, not just some guy looking for a discount. I don't think that's necessary, Cole. Why not? I thought you and Dr. Marsh had developed a good rapport. One of the other women looked confused. Holly, didn't you tell us last week that you were thinking about switching dentists because Dr. Marsh was too expensive? Holly's face went red. I was comparing prices. But you just told Cole that you'd recommend him, another woman pointed out. I was just being polite. I watched Holly squirm, enjoying her discomfort. Well, maybe I should ask Dr. Marsh directly. I think I saw him over by the dental booth. Want to come with me, Holly? You could introduce us properly. No. The word came out too loud, too sharp. The other women stared at her. I mean, I don't want to bother him. He's working. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. Come on, let's go say hi. Before Holly could protest further, I took her arm and started walking toward Ethan's booth. She resisted at first, then gave in rather than make a scene. As we approached, I could see Dana talking to Ethan. His face was pale, and he kept glancing around nervously. When he saw Holly and me approaching, he looked like he was going to be sick. Dr. Marsh, I called out cheerfully. I'm Cole Rivers, Holly's husband. I don't think we've been properly introduced. Ethan's hand was sweaty when I shook it. Nice to meet you, Mr. Rivers. Please, call me Cole. I understand you've been taking excellent care of my wife's dental needs. Yes, standard procedures. Holly's been raving about your work, haven't you, honey? Holly looked trapped. Yes, very thorough. That's what I like to hear. A dentist who pays attention to detail. I smiled at Ethan. I bet you really get to know your patients well, spending all that time working in their mouths. It's a professional relationship. Of course, but Holly's been coming to see you quite a bit lately. Must be some complicated dental work. Root canal, Ethan said quickly. Very complex case. Really? That's funny. Holly told me it was a crown. Holly and Ethan exchanged a quick glance. It was both, Holly said. Root canal and crown. Multiple procedures. Right. Multiple procedures. I nodded thoughtfully. Well, I'll definitely be calling your office to schedule an appointment. Maybe I can get the same level of personal attention Holly's been receiving. We should probably discuss your specific needs during a consultation, Ethan stammered. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I put my arm around Holly's waist, pulling her close. Isn't it great when you find a healthcare provider you can really trust? Someone who goes above and beyond the call of duty? Holly was trembling slightly. Ethan looked like he wanted to run. Well, Dana said brightly, this has been lovely, but I think Ethan and I should get going. We have dinner reservations. Of course, I said. Don't let us keep you. Holly and I were just heading home ourselves. We've got a quiet evening planned, just the two of us. As we walked away, I could feel Holly's tension radiating through her body. She didn't speak until we were back at our car. What was that about? She asked. What about? All those questions about Dr. Marsh. You were making everyone uncomfortable. I was just being friendly. I thought you'd be happy that I was taking an interest in your healthcare providers. It felt like you were interrogating him. Did it? I'm sorry if I came across that way. I was just trying to get to know the man who's been spending so much time with my wife. Holly stared at me, searching my face for hidden meaning. Cole, is there something you want to ask me? Like what? I don't know. You've been acting strange lately. Different. Different how? More attentive. More interested in my schedule, my friends, my business. It's not like you. Maybe I'm just trying to be a better husband. Or maybe you don't trust me. I stopped walking and turned to face her. Should I trust you, Holly? Of course you should trust me. I'm your wife. That's not what I asked. I asked if I should trust you. Based on your recent behavior, your honesty, your commitment to our marriage. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not stupid, Holly. I notice things. I pay attention. And lately, I've been noticing a lot. She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. For a moment, I thought she might confess everything. Instead, she got in the car and slammed the door. The drive home was silent, but I could practically hear the wheels turning in Holly's head, trying to figure out how much I knew and what she was going to do about it. Good. Let her think. Let her worry. Let her realize that her perfect little secret wasn't so perfect after all, because this was just the beginning. The fallout from the barbecue confrontation was immediate and spectacular. Holly spent Sunday morning making frantic phone calls, pacing around the house like a caged animal. I pretended to read the newspaper while listening to fragments of her conversations. He knows something. I don't know how much. We need to be more careful. By afternoon, she'd worked herself into a state of near panic. She kept staring at me when she thought I wasn't looking, as if trying to read my mind. Every time I asked a simple question, "What time will you be home?" or "Who was that on the phone?" she jumped like I'd fired a gun. Monday morning brought the next phase of our campaign. I was at the job site when my phone rang. Dana calling from her office. "Have you seen Holly's yoga studio website today?" she asked. "No, why?" "Check it out, specifically the class schedule." I pulled up the website on my phone. The weekly class schedule, which usually showed 15 to 20 sessions, was down to 8. Several of the advanced classes had been canceled due to low enrollment. "Ouch," I said. "That's gotta hurt." "It gets better." I drove past the studio this morning. There were only 3 cars in the parking lot during what should have been the busiest class of the week. "How many students does Holly usually have in that class?" 15 to 20. She's hemorrhaging clients. "What about Ethan?" "He's not doing much better. Word is getting around about his distracted behavior. Mrs. Patterson told me she's switching dentists because Ethan seemed unfocused and unprofessional during her last cleaning." "Mrs. Patterson has been going to the same dentist for 30 years. "Exactly. When you lose a loyal patient like that, it's a sign of serious problems." I felt a surge of satisfaction. Holly and Ethan were finally facing consequences for their actions. Their perfect little affair was starting to cost them professionally. "What's next?" I asked. "We let them stew for a few days, let the pressure build, then we hit them with the final blow." "Which is?" "Full exposure. Public, undeniable, career-ending exposure." "How?" "Leave that to me. Just be ready to move on Friday night." Friday night. 3 days to let Holly and Ethan marinate in their paranoia and watch their professional lives crumble. 3 days to plan the perfect ending to this whole mess. I spent those 3 days being the model husband, helpful, attentive, supportive. I brought Holly coffee in the morning, asked about her day, offered to help with household chores. The more considerate I was, the more nervous she became. "Cole," she said Tuesday evening as we sat on the couch watching TV, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you still love me?" The question caught me off guard, not because I didn't know the answer, but because I was surprised she'd asked. "Why would you ask that?" "I don't know. We've been distant lately. I wondered if you were having second thoughts about our marriage." "Are you having second thoughts?" "No. No. I love you, Cole. I love our life together. Even though I'm just a construction worker who gets dirty for a living." "What? Why would you say that?" "You've made it pretty clear that you think I'm beneath you. My job, my truck, my friends. You're always complaining about something." "I don't complain." "Holly, last week you told me I was embarrassing you at the grocery store because I was wearing work clothes." "I didn't mean. I was just having a bad day." "And the week before that, you said you were ashamed to be seen in my truck." "I was joking." "Were you?" "Because it didn't sound like a joke." Holly was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry if I've been critical. I've been under a lot of stress lately." "What kind of stress?" "Work stuff. Money stuff. The studio isn't doing as well as I hoped. Maybe that's because you've been distracted lately, not focused on your business." What do you mean? I mean you've been spending a lot of time on other things. Personal appointments, phone calls, mysterious errands. Maybe your students are noticing that you're not fully present. I'm always present for my classes. Are you? Because Amber mentioned that you've been taking a lot of phone calls during sessions lately. Holly's face went white. You talked to Amber? I stopped by the studio last week to surprise you with lunch. You weren't there, but Amber and I chatted for a few minutes. What did she tell you? Just that you've been stressed and distracted. She's worried about you. She had no right to discuss my business with you. She wasn't discussing your business. She was expressing concern for your well-being. As your husband, I appreciate that. Holly got up and walked to the window, staring out at the street. Cole, if I told you I'd made some mistakes lately, would you forgive me? My heart started pounding. Was she about to confess? What kind of mistakes? Just bad decisions. Things I'm not proud of. Everyone makes mistakes, Holly. The question is whether you're willing to make things right. What if the mistakes were really bad? What if they hurt people? Then you'd need to face the consequences and try to repair the damage. And if the damage couldn't be repaired, then you'd need to live with the consequences of your choices. She turned around to face me. Would you stand by me, even if I'd done something terrible? That would depend on what you'd done and whether you were truly sorry for it. I am sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. For a moment, I thought she was going to tell me about Ethan. I could see the words forming on her lips, the confession ready to spill out. But then her phone rang, and the moment was lost. She looked at the caller ID and declined the call. Telemarketer, she said, but I could see the tension return to her face. Holly, if there's something you need to tell me, now would be a good time. There's nothing to tell. I'm just going through a rough patch. But I'll figure it out. We could figure it out together. That's what married couples do. Some things you have to handle alone. Wednesday and Thursday passed in a haze of tension and unspoken accusations. Holly was jumpy and distracted, constantly checking her phone and making excuses to leave the house. I followed my normal routine while mentally preparing for whatever Dana had planned for Friday night. Friday evening, I got a text from an unknown number. Riverside Inn, room 237, 9 p.m. Bring a camera. This was it. The final confrontation. The moment when Holly and Ethan's secret world would come crashing down around them. I told Holly I was going to Jake's house to watch the game. She seemed relieved to have me out of the house, probably so she could make her own plans for the evening. At 8:30, I drove to the Riverside Inn and parked across the street. The motel was exactly as seedy as I'd imagined. Flickering neon sign, cracked asphalt parking lot, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. Dana was already there, sitting in her car with a clear view of room 237. I walked over and got in the passenger seat. They're both here, she said, pointing to Holly's car and Ethan's Tesla parked side by side. Arrived about 20 minutes ago. How do you want to do this? Simple. We knock on the door, take some pictures, and let them know their secret is out. And then? Then we see how they want to handle it. Public confession and apology, or public humiliation and exposure. What if they try to deny it? With both of them half naked in a motel room. Good luck with that. I pulled out my phone and checked the camera function. My hands were surprisingly steady, considering what we were about to do. Ready? Dana asked. Let's finish this. We walked across the parking lot to room 237. I could hear voices inside, muffled but recognizable. Holly's laugh, Ethan's deeper tone. They sounded relaxed, comfortable, completely unaware that their world was about to implode. Dana raised her hand and knocked firmly on the door. The voices inside stopped immediately. A long pause, then Ethan's voice. Who is it? Hotel management, Dana called out. We need to check the air conditioning unit. Another pause. Whispered conversation. Then footsteps approaching the door. The door opened a crack, and Ethan's face appeared. He was shirtless, his hair disheveled. When he saw Dana and me, his expression went from confusion to horror in about 2 seconds. "Surprise," I said, pushing the door open wider. Holly was sitting on the bed in a hotel bathrobe, her clothes scattered on the floor. When she saw me, she let out a small scream and pulled the covers up to her chin. "Cole, what are you... How did you... Find you? It wasn't that hard, Holly. You're not as clever as you think you are." I raised my phone and started taking pictures. Dana did the same. Ethan tried to block the camera with his hands, but it was too late. We had all the evidence we needed. "Stop!" Holly cried. "Please, just stop." "Why should we stop?" Dana asked coldly. "You didn't stop when you were destroying our marriages." "This isn't what it looks like," Ethan said desperately. "Really?" I said. "Because it looks like my wife and your husband are having an affair in a cheap motel room. What else could it possibly be?" "We can explain," Holly said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sure you can. But I'm not interested in explanations anymore. I'm interested in consequences." "What do you want?" Ethan asked. "Justice," Dana said simply. "You humiliated us, lied to us, betrayed us. Now it's your turn to face the consequences." "We'll end it," Holly said quickly. "Right now. It's over. We'll never see each other again." "Too late for that," I said. "You made your choice. Now you get to live with it." "Please, Cole. Think about Emma. Think about our daughter." "I am thinking about Emma. I'm thinking about what kind of example you've been setting for her, what kind of mother she has. You can't tell her about this. It would destroy her. You should have thought about that before you started screwing your dentist." Holly broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Ethan sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Dana and I exchanged a look. We'd planned this moment carefully, but now that it was here, I felt a strange sense of anticlimax. The revenge was complete, but it felt hollow somehow. "Now you face the music," Dana said. "Both of you. Publicly." "What does that mean?" "It means everyone gets to know what you've been doing. Your patients, Ethan, Holly's students, your families, your friends, your colleagues. Everyone." "That will ruin us," Ethan said. "You ruined yourselves," I replied. "We're just making sure everyone knows about it." We left them there in that seedy motel room, crying and desperate and finally understanding the cost of their betrayal. As we walked back to our cars, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. "How do you feel?" Dana asked. "Like I just won a war that nobody should have had to fight." "Any regrets?" "About exposing them?" "No." "About the fact that it came to this?" "Absolutely." Dana nodded. "I know what you mean. I never wanted to be the kind of person who destroys lives, but they didn't give us much choice." "What happens next?" "Next, we rebuild. We figure out how to move forward from here." "Together?" Dana smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in weeks. "I'd like that. But let's get through the divorces first." As I drove home through the quiet streets of Castle Rock, I thought about Holly and Ethan, probably still sitting in that motel room trying to figure out how to salvage their lives. I thought about the gossip that would spread through town like wildfire once word got out. I thought about Emma and how I was going to explain this mess to her. But mostly, I thought about the future. For the first time in months, I felt like I had control over my own life again. Holly and Ethan had made their choices, and now they would face the consequences. The age of being taken for granted was over. The age of Cole Rivers fighting back had begun. Saturday morning brought the reckoning I'd been anticipating. I woke up to find Holly sitting at the kitchen table, still wearing yesterday's clothes, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She looked up when I walked in, her expression a mixture of shame and desperation. We need to talk, she said. I figured we might. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down across from her. The kitchen felt different somehow, like a familiar room that had been rearranged while I wasn't looking. Everything was the same, but nothing would ever be the same again. How long have you known? Holly asked. About 6 weeks, but I suspected something was wrong for months before that. 6 weeks? She looked stunned. Why didn't you say anything? I wanted to see how far you'd take it, how long you'd lie to my face. Cole, I never meant for this to happen. It started as friendship, and then you decided to sleep with him in a cheap motel room while telling me you were working late. She flinched at the crude language. It wasn't like that. What was it like, Holly? Help me understand how you justified betraying our marriage. I felt invisible, like you didn't see me anymore, didn't appreciate me. Ethan made me feel special, important. So this is my fault? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I was lonely and confused, and I made terrible decisions. Multiple terrible decisions, over months. This wasn't one mistake, Holly. This was a sustained campaign of deception and betrayal. She started crying again, but I felt no sympathy. I'd used up all my compassion during the weeks of watching her lie to me. What do you want me to say? She sobbed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. But we can fix this, can't we? We can go to counseling, work through this together. Fix this? Holly, you destroyed our marriage. You humiliated me. You put our family at risk for some middle-aged fantasy with a married man. What exactly do you think we can fix? We can rebuild. Start over. I'll do whatever it takes. What about Ethan? Are you in love with him? The question hung in the air between us. Holly's face went through a series of expressions. Surprise, confusion, pain. I don't know. I thought I was. But now, everything's so complicated. It's not complicated at all. You made a choice. You chose him over me, over our marriage, over our family. The only thing that's changed is that you got caught. That's not true, isn't it? If Dana and I hadn't found out, would you have ended the affair? Holly was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, she admitted finally. At least you're being honest about something. My phone rang. Jake Morrison, probably wondering why I hadn't shown up for our usual Saturday morning coffee. I let it go to voicemail. Cole, what happens now? Holly asked. Are you going to divorce me? I don't know yet. I need time to think. What about Emma? What are we going to tell her? We're going to tell her the truth, that her mother had an affair and destroyed our family. She doesn't need to know the details. She's 15 years old, Holly. She's not stupid, and she deserves to know why her parents are getting divorced. You've already decided then. You're going to divorce me. I'm considering my options. But I can tell you this. I will never trust you again. I will never look at you the same way. Every time you're 5 minutes late, every time you get a text message, every time you smile at another man, I'll wonder if you're cheating again. Is that the kind of marriage you want? I would never cheat again. I swear. You swore to be faithful when we got married. How'd that work out? Holly buried her face in her hands. I don't know how to fix this. You can't fix it. That's what you don't understand. Some things, once broken, can't be repaired. The doorbell rang. Holly looked up hopefully, as if whoever was at the door might somehow rescue her from this conversation. I got up to answer it. Dana stood on my front porch, looking composed and determined. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, and she looked more attractive than I'd ever noticed before. Morning, she said. Mind if I come in? Sure, Holly's in the kitchen. Good, I want to talk to both of you. We walked back to the kitchen, where Holly looked up with a mixture of hope and fear. Maybe she thought Dana was here to negotiate some kind of truce. Holly, Dana said, sitting down at the table, we need to discuss how this is going to work. What's going to work? The aftermath, the consequences, the rest of your life. I don't understand. Let me be clear. Ethan and I are getting divorced. He's moving out today, and my lawyer will be filing papers on Monday. I'm going to take him for everything I can get. The house, the practice, the retirement accounts, everything. Holly paled. What does that have to do with me? It has everything to do with you. You're the other woman in a very public, very messy divorce. Your name is going to be all over the court documents. Your affair is going to be a matter of public record. But I thought we could keep this quiet. Dana laughed, but there was no humor in it. Quiet? Holly, you've been screwing my husband for months while lying to your own husband and neglecting your business. Half the town already suspects something's going on. The other half will know by Monday. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not keeping your secret anymore. I'm not protecting you from the consequences of your actions. Everyone's going to know exactly what you did. You can't do that. It will ruin me. You ruined yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. Holly turned to me desperately. Cole, you can't let her do this. Think about Emma. Think about our reputation. I am thinking about Emma. I'm thinking she deserves better than a mother who cheats on her father and then tries to cover it up. Please, I'm begging you, don't destroy my life. I'm not destroying your life, Dana said coldly. I'm just refusing to help you hide what you've already done to it. Holly broke down again, sobbing uncontrollably. I felt a flicker of the old sympathy, the instinct to comfort her that had been ingrained over 15 years of marriage. But then I remembered her voice on the phone, talking to Ethan about how I didn't understand her needs, how I was just a construction worker covered in sawdust. There's something else, Dana continued when Holly's sobs subsided. I want you to stay away from Ethan, completely. No contact, no communication, nothing. We already agreed to end it. I'm not talking about the affair. I'm talking about any contact whatsoever. If I find out you've called him, texted him, or seen him anywhere, I'll make your life even more miserable than it already is. How? I'll make sure every detail of your affair becomes public knowledge. The motel receipts, the text messages, the times and dates of every encounter. I'll turn your pathetic little secret into front-page news. You're being cruel. I'm being realistic. You destroyed 2 marriages and hurt 4 people because you were bored and selfish. A little cruelty seems appropriate. Dana stood up to leave. Oh, and Holly? You might want to start looking for a new place to live, something you can afford on a yoga instructor's salary, because I doubt Cole's going to be subsidizing your lifestyle much longer. After Dana left, Holly and I sat in silence for a long time. The weight of everything that had happened seemed to settle over the kitchen like a heavy blanket. What do you want me to do? Holly asked finally. I want you to pack a bag and go stay with your sister for a while. I need time to think without you here. For how long? I don't know. Maybe a few days, maybe forever. I need to figure out if there's anything left of our marriage worth saving. And if there isn't, then you'll need to find somewhere else to live permanently. Holly nodded numbly. What about my things? Take what you need for now. We'll figure out the rest later. She went upstairs to pack while I sat in the kitchen, staring out the window at our backyard. The grass needed cutting, the fence needed repair, the garden was overgrown with weeds. All the normal maintenance of a normal life that suddenly seemed pointless. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Saw the photos. Everyone knows. It's over. A friend. The gossip mill was already grinding. By Monday, everyone in Castle Rock would know about Holly and Ethan's affair. Their professional reputations would be destroyed, their social standing obliterated, their personal lives laid bare for public consumption. Part of me felt satisfied by that. They'd humiliated me in private. Now they'd be humiliated in public. But another part of me just felt empty, like I'd won a war that nobody should have had to fight. Holly came downstairs with a suitcase, her face puffy and tear-streaked. She stood in the kitchen doorway, looking lost and broken. Cole, I know you hate me right now. I know you think I'm a terrible person, but I want you to know that I did love you. I still love you. What I did with Ethan wasn't about not loving you. Then what was it about? It was about not loving myself, not feeling worthy of love. Ethan made me feel special for a few hours and I got addicted to that feeling. So you threw away 15 years of marriage for a few hours of feeling special? I know how stupid that sounds. I know how selfish it was, but I can't take it back now. No, you can't. She walked to the door, then turned back. Will you call me? When you've decided what you want to do? Yeah, I'll call you. After she left, I sat alone in the house we'd shared for over a decade, surrounded by the remnants of a life that no longer existed. The photos on the walls, the furniture we'd picked out together, the accumulated debris of a marriage that had faded in a cheap motel room. My phone rang. Dana. How are you holding up? She asked. I'm okay, hollow but okay. You? The same. Ethan moved out this morning, took his clothes and his golf clubs and left everything else. Any regrets about how we handled this? None. They made their choices, and now they get to live with the consequences. What about you? I keep thinking I should feel worse about destroying their lives, but mostly I just feel relieved that it's over. It's not over yet. The real consequences are just beginning. What do you mean? I mean the gossip, the social ostracism, the professional fallout. Holly's yoga studio is going to tank, and Ethan's going to lose patience. They're going to find out what it's like to be pariahs in a small town. And us? We're going to be fine. We're the wronged parties, the innocent victims. People will sympathize with us. Is that what you want, sympathy? I want justice, and I want to move on with my life. Together? There was a pause. I'd like that, but let's take it slow. We both have a lot of healing to do. After we hung up, I walked through the house, turning off lights and checking locks. It felt like closing down a business that had failed, securing the premises before walking away forever. Tomorrow, I'd start figuring out how to rebuild my life. I'd call a lawyer, talk to Emma, begin the process of disentangling 15 years of shared existence. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The lies were over, the deception was ended, and the truth was finally out in the open. Holly and Ethan had gambled everything on their affair, and they'd lost. Now it was time for them to pay the price, and for me to collect what was owed.